Hi, everyone. This is Ken Rakowski from Metal, and this is Metal Connect, where you get to meet one of the most amazing speakers that share time with us on Saturday, and we hold them over for an hour where we could dive into what they're doing. This week's speaker is a mind blower. Yep, he is a eyegasm, an eargasm, and a braingasm, all of them put together. He is considered one of the top writers in the world. Like I said, the Bible is number one when it's considered the most read book in the world. Number two is the Guinness Book of World Records. And right after that is the Chicken Soup series. Mark Victor Hansen is the co-author of those books. He's a dear, dear friend, sharp guy. He is a polymath. And what I mean by that, well, I'll get to that. He's a polymath, meaning he's a Renaissance man. He's great at so many things, not just writing a book. We'll touch upon that also. But today is an opportunity to dive into one of the most coveted writers in the world of all time. And I'm honored to have him join us right now. Mark Victor Hansen is joining us from Arizona. Hi, Mark.
Great to be with you and the team. I mean, Metal has the most metal, M-E-T, in the world. I mean, you guys are all lifelong learners, lifelong students, and lifelong thinkers dedicated to high purposefulness and destinies worthy of each of you.
There you go. I like that. Hey, Mark, before we dive into anything, you used to live in Southern California.
Yes, sir.
You moved to Arizona.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like you may have been a little ahead of the trend because everyone seems to be exiting California. Why did you leave a year and a half, 2 years ago?
It was like 4 years ago. And
it was 4 years ago. Okay, got it.
Crystal and I owned a bunch of real estate here, and it had all doubled. And we're driving back from Arizona, where we had also had a luxury condo, to our house in Corona del Mar, which was right over her beach, Crystal Cove Beach. So it was like a heavenly place. And she leaned over and said, "Did you hear what I heard?" And I said, "You tell me what you heard." But both of us had the intuition. God sort of, I believe God talks in quiet places inside. And both of us immediately said, "Holy cow, we got to leave California." And I said, "Well, you've been in my office building." I had a big office building. I had 387 employees. It was not like an easy decision at first. And then I said, "Well, I heard what you heard, so we're selling and we're getting out of here." Now, we hated the traffic. When I went to California, I moved there in 1974 or 5, and there was only 10 million people. Well, now there's 40 million people, and the roads weren't built to handle 40 million people. So we left, we went to Arizona, and I just got to tell you, not that I'm trying to sell Arizona, we're told that 1 million people are going to move into Arizona in the next 2 years. And it is, right now, it is heaven. You wake up and it's 60 degrees, it goes all the way up to 75, and it's sunny and it's beautiful, and the skies are all clear. And it's this state of 5 C's: cactus, climate, cotton, cattle, and my wife, Crystal.
So Mark is a pure delight, everyone. We're going to go through a deck that he put together, but I want you to have that opportunity to ask questions. If you're watching this on an archive, oh, you missed out. You wanted to be here live, but you at least get to absorb what Mark is. And like I said, he's a polymath. Now, Mark, have you been known to be, has people called you a polymath or a Renaissance man?
Not a Renaissance man, but a polymath. Polymath, it's connotatively and denotatively defined, but denotatively it means, somebody has multiplicity of varied interests, and I could not have more varied interests. I mean, I've climbed almost all the highest mountains that weren't like in Whitney in America, and Fuji in Japan, and Kilimanjaro, and I opened up the pyramids down in Guatemala with the head of archaeology and anthropology and from Harvard. So, the deal for each of us here is, and obviously the book we're going to talk about a little bit is Ask, the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. If you're alive, you have a destiny that's great. And if you're alive, my position is your destiny is unfulfilled. And if that's true, I'm going to hold up a mirror for you to look at it and make it bigger, better, brighter, more opportune, more exciting. And then Ken said at the very end, we can open it up to a few minutes of questions. Did I remember that right? I hope.
You get to actually run this. I'm just sitting here. I'm all excited to hear you talk also. So why don't we do this? Let's go dive into a deck that you have put together.
Okay. Do I have share again? And then
you do. I never took it away from you.
Tell me that it's all going to mount up and
it's going to rock. Work. It's going to work, Mark. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. Well, it kind of worked there for a second. Now you want to go to your PowerPoint or your deck. You want to share not your desktop, but you want to share your PowerPoint.
how do I had it working
Here,
before.
I'm gonna knock you out of it. Now you go back to it. So go back to share
Yes,
and
sir.
go share your PowerPoint.
Here we go. Thank you for being patient. Is it showing?
All right. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna run your PowerPoint.
Yep,
So
I will do it.
you know how to go from
Okay.
here, right? There you go.
So, because he had those rock concert TV things and all that, I thought we should call this Rock Your Life, Your World, and Your Business. And it's a virtual seminar by me. And obviously, we got a brand new book out, which I want you all to get, called Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. The simple thing of that is that we're teaching ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And what we're saying is get with somebody else and go through the book, because Socrates, the smartest guy in Athens, as you all remember, said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And what happens is most people have never gotten clear on what do I really want, and at all levels, and we'll talk about that. And then the book in the middle is that my publisher said, oh, the chicken soup or the soul, you can't outsell the Bible. So I said, well, wait a second, I'll do one. And he said, you're not going to do that with my publishing house. So we did Chicken Soup of the Soul Bible. Dr. Campbell and I championed different things. And I got little stories getting you in the big story. And this one is cute because it's got a purple cover. And I think that's God's highest color. So that was great fun for me to, do and share with you all. And we sold 70,000 a week at Walmart with a publisher. So the point is that usually I've been writing on the right side, if you can see this picture, and I don't think you can, but it shows me holding a chicken soup book, which usually look like that. And we sold 500 million of them. We've done 2 billion of these at retail. I think I'll be showing that one more time, and 1 billion in licensing, which I created, which I'll talk about. But let's put us in paradigm of where we are right now. The 6,000-year-old symbol you're all familiar with, called yin and yang, out of China. And I've been going to China for 22 years, up until 3 years ago. So I am deep in saying we got to cut that off, but that's not a political statement, just a reason. But the yin and yang says crisis equals opportunity. So 8 billion of us have been sequestered in COVID lockdown at different levels, governmentally, in different states and around the country and the world. And so if you got the biggest crisis, you got the biggest opportunity. And because you're all in business, let me just give you my best example of somebody doing it right. And that is somebody we all know, Elon Musk, at least in name. And Musk is, I'm going to show you something by him in a minute, but here's a guy who the government of California said shut down. And instead of shutting down, he calls up the head of 3M and said, I understand you can't make your ventilators fast enough. I got 3D printing, I got metal, I got engineers, I got everything you want. Send me the architecture. Starts making them, and then kept making cars. And during this last 8 months, he became the 4th richest guy in the world. He made 90,000 cars. The principle here is crisis is opportunity. If today I was on the biggest leadership show, and I said, each of us have to be self-leaders before we can lead somebody else. And you got to have a visionary leadership. And Solomon said, without vision, you perish, which is a leadership statement. I'm translating that with vision, you flourish. And obviously, I've flourished in book sales and the companies I own, which I'll show you, but I want you guys to flourish. So 1974, I'd been in graduate school with Bucky Fuller, 7 years traveling around with Fuller, Einstein's best student, arguably, and he was invented geodesic domes and Dymaxion cars that ran on alcohol, ethanol, and methanol. And we created a concept called World Game because he'd been an admiral in World War I in 1917, trained by the British, came here and said, we ought to make war gaming into peace gaming. And I helped him create that whole thing, but I tried to be Bucky, which was my mistake. That's why I said, you got to ask yourself. And I asked myself, I went bankrupt in 1974. I built in New York City, the Wall Street Racquet Club, Botanical Gardens, aviaries, houses, and really smoking, but I was building out of PVC polyvinyl chloride at exactly the wrong time. Arabs said, we can write checks, so your bank's about, bingo. I went bankrupt so fast I had to check a book out of the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. And went, for 6 months, I'm sleeping out in front of another guy's room. I figure out what I want to do. Remember, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. I asked, what do I want to do? I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that make a life transformative difference. And I go to my roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, 3 guys. And I say, any of you guys know somebody young, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not a famous person talking and making money? The guy said, yeah, here's my ticket. It's Chip Collins. He's out at the thing. You take my ticket and you go watch him talk to the realtors at an multi listing thing. And I went out there. The guy wowed me and 500 people for 3 hours. At the end, I went up and I asked Chip Collins, can I take you to lunch? I need to know how to do this. He said, look, Ed, the chance you make it is 1 in 1,000. You're not going to make it. But if you're buying lunch, I'll let you ask me anything you want. He said, if you stay out of real estate, I own the 5 boroughs of New York. I'll teach you how to do it in a life insurance business. Gave me all the right questions. I started selling the next day, called on 10 persons. The 10th one said yes. When I talked to Tony Robbins, he and I are the only 2 guys I know that did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years in the business. Because I believe you got to do massive right thinking in a massive right direction to get to the destiny of your heart's desire. Anyhow, when I'm doing those talks, everyone says, well, boy, do you have that book story in a book? So the first book I did was this one, Stand Up, Speak Out and Win. And I said to the audiences, and some of them were as little as 6 and then up to 50 and then 100. I said, this isn't a New York Times bestseller. It's not a national bestseller. It's not an international bestseller, but it's my bestseller. And what I want to do is I want to sign it to you, your spouse, your kids. And if you got a dog, I want to sign it to them. And they all laughed, but I sold 20,000 copies at $10 each and made $200,000. I tripled my income. And I thought I died and gone to heaven because I said, oh boy, I found my right livelihood. I love talking. I love selling books. I'm going to get really good at this. And you know, you and I can do anything you want to get good at. So I started selling when I was 9 years old because my parents were Danish immigrants with a little Danish bakery, and you don't make any money at 5 cents a roll. Dad couldn't afford a bicycle I wanted today. It would have been a Trek bike. It's $4,700. At 9 years old, he was convinced I couldn't do it. I'm a Boy Scout. I read the Boy Scout Life magazine. It said you can cut out greeting cards and consignment. I said, I can afford that. I went to all the neighbors. It was snowy back in Waukegan, Illinois. And I said, would you like to invest in 1 box of Christmas cards or 2? Sold 376 boxes of Christmas cards in a month's time. Came #1 guy with American greeting cards. 30 years later, when I'm doing licensing, they fly in their little jet to Newport Beach, come and meet me. And I said, you know, 30 years ago, I was your #1 guy. Now you want me to do this again? And I wrote all the greeting cards. We sold 897,000 at Christmas in grocery stores. So it was like way cool. But at 16, with the money I made as a paper boy, shoveling snow and all that, I started a rock group because the Beatles came out. And I called it, my wife said it's prophetic, called the Messengers. And I was a bass player, but I got the group together and we were working 5 or 6 nights a week, made enough money to go to college and have a great time. And when I got to college, I was with that guy, Bucky Fuller, who I was 21 when I met him and he's 71. And he always used to hold my arm and say, old boy. I went, old boy, you know, I know you went to Harvard and all that, but you know, a little difference here and that. But like I said, I went bankrupt. I did the book. And then Jack and I meet. We're talking to 6,000 people. I'm the tie-up. He'd been the kickoff speaker in the Mandala Association in San Diego. After I've signed all the books I'm going to sign, he comes up to me and said, man, you are a great storyteller. Teach me how to do those heart-touching, soul-penetrating stories. That's how it started. We decided to do the book. We used the 3rd principle. Remember, it said, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. We said, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, 400 times before we went to sleep in our respective rooms. I was in Newport, he was in Santa Barbara. He calls me up at 2:58 in the morning, wakes up the whole house. This is before cell phones, long ago. This is 1990. And he said, chicken soup. I said, for the soul. I said, we got it. And then 144 people still turned us down. If you're going to run a company, do you want to ask something, Ken?
No, that just blew me away what you just said, how many people turned you down.
Yeah. So the point is, I think if you're going to run a company or write a book, they got to be these 3 things: transformational. It's got to be totally unique. And it's got to be inevitable that when people read it, want it, or do it, they tell everybody else. Like Walt Disney said, do what you do so well that when people see what it is that you do, they want to bring others with them, and they'll tell all their friends, neighbors, and relatives they got to go to Disneyland or Disney World or Disney whatever. I thought that was really good. So you need to have a destination, and our destination was change the world one store at a time. When we wrote Chicken Soup, we thought the world, America's soul was in trouble. What we discovered is the soul of the world is in trouble, and people need stories that are a metaphor. They can get them out of it. If you've never read one of our books, I hope you'll read it. It's been really wonderful. But like I said, 144 people turned down. You all actually said, hit the road, Jack. And I said, it's okay if you don't like him, but I'm a nice guy. Now, Jack's wonderful if you've met him. But I teach the way out of rejection, because I've been doing sales training for 44 years, is a clean 4-letter word, N-E-X-T, next. So you got to be Teflon and say, look, if you don't buy, somebody else will. And that old thing about Thomas Edison said, you failed 10,000 times creating a light bulb. He said, I never failed once. However, I had 10,000 learning experiences to get me here. So The point is some of you have never seen our collage of books, but we got chicken soup on everything. Canadian sold a lot of stuff, chicken soup, the golfer sold, like I said, 2 billion at retail. We're actually in 54 languages now, over 500 million books sold. We got 2 movies. If movie theaters ever open up, we got 2 movies ready to come out. So it's like way cool. And when we did chicken soup at this old dog food, we got, Crystal and I have 5 kids and 6 grandkids, but one of our daughters was becoming a vet. And I had 4 dogs at our house. And Diamond Pet Food, second biggest after Purina, came in to negotiate with me. And I said, look, it's got to taste good, look good, be right packaging. We've got to have a little book in it. And we had tests on my dogs. And if they don't like it, I ain't buying it, because I just did the meeting with Jay Leno and 7,000 veterinarians out in the Midwest and St. Louis with Purdue. No, not Purdue, Purina. And I said, look, they had at the top one, the best packaging. They had the right shelf space, the cash register, and it went up 1 month and crashed. And the boss came in and said, what's wrong? Said, the dogs don't like it. So I said, the dogs got to like it if we're doing it with me. Here's Jack and I standing in front of this stuff at ABA, American Bookseller. And, you know, we did 254. But the principle here is, if you write what you're capable of writing, you'll literally astonish yourself. And for those of you who've never written a book, I want you to read my book called You Have a Book, and you can get it at Amazon, just like you can get all these. And it's a little book, but it'll catapult you to your greatness, because what I wrote on the back cover is the best book of all time hasn't been written yet because you got to write it. And I teach, don't ever write anything unless you're going to sequel it and prequel it. And we've written 7 books behind us at publisher I bought, like Speed Write Your Autobiography. Ken, wouldn't you like to know what your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents thought, said, felt, how many kids they had, what diseases they had, way beyond 23andMe? Wouldn't you love to know all that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you get to start it, because I know you got kids and you need to write your own autobiography.
You've been bugging me for years, decades.
Good. So nobody would invite me to a Hollywood party. I know that's hard to believe. When I was in Newport Beach, I just didn't get invited. So I said, well, I'll have one if nobody invite me. I had 500 people come out. We brought out the Shirelles coming to the chapel, and I'm going to all that stuff. And they brought out a gift to me of the Temptation. So we danced and partied all night, and most people left early. But Bob Allen, who'd written the #1 book in real estate ever, and sold 20 million in 1 year, called Nothing Down, was there. And he said, I want you to write the foreword to 1 Minute Millionaire. And I said, hell, I want to know how to make $1 million. I'll write the foreword to that, Bobby. Well, the next day I'm flying up to Vancouver, and Bob gets in seat. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, I called your secretary. I said, where's Mark flying? I'm going to in next to him. I'm going to talk him into writing the book with me. And remember, I said, when you write a book, you want to be unique. And this is the image of universal freedom, a butterfly. And this is my corporate symbols, which are purple and yellow. And the butterfly is our corporate symbol. And Bob and I wrote The Enlightened Way to Wealth. And what's different about this book, the left-hand side is all the left brain stuff. And I said, that'll be the nonfiction book. So this is the only book ever to be both fiction and nonfiction, #1 New York Times simultaneously, because no one ever thought of it, I don't think, until me. Remember, I said, you got to be unique. I want to unique up in you. And the right-hand side's a movie we still want to make, and maybe Ken will find me somebody to do that. But if you'll notice, it has stuff that nobody else has ever done, like purple writing. And then if you see, I don't know if you can see this in the video, okay, can you see the butterfly here? The butterfly flies off to your freedom by the time you get to the top of the book. Now, what's amazing about this is that the last 2 years, this has been the #1 book sold in Vietnam. Now, I was in Vietnam the first time in '68. Now the book is the #1 book because I'm telling the Vietnamese, and they got giant audiences. They pay me 75 grand a day to come and talk. And I say, hey, look, we got to stop the incursion of China into Vietnam. We've got to keep free enterprise free here. They've been trying to take over Vietnam for 1,000 years, and I want to teach you free enterprise. And the people just go nuts. Every audience sells out, and we've been everywhere. I mean, I can go through the cities and all that. But Bob and I wrote the book. It rocked to the top. One thing that you guys would like, Jeff Bezos was on TV, cocky as hell, saying, nobody can sell more books than I, Jeff Bezos, and Amazon can deliver. So now Bob had just written a book called Challenge, and some of you saw him on TV again and again, and he said, send me to any city. Now there are other people knocking off his thing, but give me $100 bill in 24 hours. I'll buy $1 million worth of real estate. I think it was ABC, it may have been NBC, takes him to San Francisco, give him $100. He left the $5 $20 bills at the airport. That's Bob. He's a genius, but he's a little forgetful. Goes out and buys $1 million worth of real estate in 24 hours. But then he said, send me to any unemployment line and I'll get all those people making $5 grand a month in 1 month, or I'll pay them that. And, so he takes these crazy challenges and still does that. He learned Chinese in like 3 months, and I don't know if he's still working there right now, but he's a genius at a lot of levels. He owned the Jazz at one time. He's done really well. Anyhow, Bob and I are very close friends. I think the world of him and his mind and his brilliant soul and everything. But we're watching Jeff Bezos cockily say, nobody can sell more. I said, Bobby, did you hear what I think I heard? He said, yeah, I think he just challenged you and I. We're going to melt that mother. And so when the book came out, when this came out, remember, I said, you got to be unique and you got to know how to market better than anybody else. And I'll talk to that in a second. I interviewed the 101 best fiction, nonfiction guys before Chicken came out, because I didn't ask him how to write. Hell, I know how to write. I said, Scott Peck, who went to Harvard with Jack, I said, Dr. Peck, tell me how you marketed to be 58 weeks #1 with, here's a little miniature of that. Well, I can't put my hand on it fast enough, but a road less travel. And, he told me what to do. And then we did a wild business plan. But with this, we sold so many of these so fast. We told everybody, if you'll come on, at that time, Amazon came on at 6 o'clock and we were like 750,000. By 10 o'clock, we were at 750, at which time all of Amazon went. Within an hour, Bezos called up and said, I'll pay you 3 guys, because it was Bob, I, and one other guy who owned this company, that we took this and we did 4,000 people a weekend. We did a $100 million company called the Millionaires Institute. Anyhow, the point is, Bezos had us come up there and paid us. If I knew he was going to be the richest man in the world, we would have brought video cameras and everything. So I did make some mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say, make sure you videotape, photo, shoot it. We thought he was just being cute. I could not see that he was going to be one of the more interesting guys in algorithms and create prime and, do stuff that nobody's ever done. Like right now, he sells books everywhere but China. So and everything else. But when we did the book, I said, hey, wait a second. What I want to do is I want to create 1 million millionaires, and I want them to grow exponentially, because here's what I believe different than anyone else. There's one right, perfect, easy, and acceptable way to you to make your million. And $1 million's not enough anymore. I really believe, Grant Cardone and I believe, it's got to be 10 million is basic before you really start financial independence and freedom. And for some of you, you're going to look back and say, that's not enough. And some of you are saying, whoa, that's a high goal. But any goal you set and put in writing and vividly imagine, ardently desire, enthusiastically act upon, Paul J. Meyer says, you're going to get. And I believe that. The other thing is, I want to give you a free book, because everybody's so downtrodden now. I did a book called How to Be Up and Down Times with Preston Weeks and Mitzi Perdue. Now, Mitzi Perdue does 22 million chickens a week at Perdue Chicken, and you just had her on the show. And she graduated Harvard in 1953. That one of the top guys in Silicon Valley calls me up when he's with Mitzi in Dubai doing a thing for our government and says, Mark, I got your new best friend here. I said, Bradley, that's you. You're head of West Point and all that. What the hell are you doing? Tell me somebody else is going to be my new best friend. I said, no, you got to meet Mitzi. She's one of us. She's also a polymath. She is going to be your new best friend. I said, well, put her on the phone. I've never physically met this woman, and we talk literally every day. She called right before we started this thing.
Well, you've never hung out with Mitzi?
I've never met her physically. We've had wine together. We've had virtual meetings, but COVID happened right when I met her on the phone. We started synchronizing. So I said, Mitzi, and both our lawyers wouldn't let us do what we wanted to do with this book. We wanted to tell you guys, like, I got COVID, so I knew and think in advance you ought to have, and some of your medical doctors on here, so prescribe for yourself. But I took hydrochloroquine back in India for a year. If Mother Teresa, who I love a lot, had taken that, she wouldn't have gotten, and died. Anyhow, so the point is, inadvertently, I got it in Mexico, hydrochloroquine, Z-Pak, and zinc. And I one morning I woke up like 5 weeks ago on a Wednesday at 5:31, and I said, oh God, I'm dying. I hope my will's okay and Crystal's going to be okay. So I came, opened up the safe, took out the stuff, I thought it was 50 milligrams. So I know you have 200 3 times a day, and I was 500. And I took 2 doses. I took 8 days of stuff in 2 dosages. And Crystal comes in, read it, and said, "You dumbass, you are nuts. That's not 50, that's 500. You're going to kill yourself." So I looked it up online, and then I called my doctor, Dr. Lou Tartaglia, who's Mother Teresa's best friend too, speaks Italian, is a great guy. Anyhow, Luigi and I are close. I said, "Luigi, what are you doing? What do I do?" He said, "Just over liquid." And the next day I was totally well. And now we've had our blood tested, and, so I'm safe to go anywhere. Now, in this book, what's critical to you is what I'm going to show you in a second. We're not going to do 50 billion from 2020 to 2030. In this decade of 10 years, we're going to do 50 trillion, and you need to know what the businesses are. So I'm going to show you. They're alternative energy, garbage recycling, 5G, 5th generation telephone, robotics and cobotics, which is collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and DNA sequencing, which is, cool. Now, one of the companies I own Natural Power Concepts. And I'm going to tell you that for 12 years, I've had millions of crystals and my dollars locked in this thing, frozen. And I guess I was way ahead of time, which I learned from Dr. Ray Kurzweil, the guy who runs Google X and created nanotechnology. Kurzweil said, you got to be exactly right on. If you're a day early or a day late, your invention isn't worth a damn. And I have to agree with him. But I bought into this great company, which I want you to look at all the videos. I'm going to show you a 2-minute video, but this is just a short one called Natural Power Concepts. I own it. It will start here.
Creating innovative new ways of harvesting electricity from natural forces, such as wind, waves, tidal and current flow, solar and geothermal heat. NPC devices are designed to generate power for distribution to the grid or for industrial and consumer applications, utilizing efficient, cost-effective, elegant, environmentally safe, and wildlife-friendly approaches.
We got some really cool devices. The genius of our time, as far as I'm concerned, the Leonardo da Vinci, and I'm a scholar on Leonardo da Vinci, is John Petrie, world's greatest realist living artist, lives in Hawaii, which you can't get to right now because they've shut off all travel because there's an idiot governor there, as far as I'm concerned. I'm in judgment of that, and you don't have to agree with me. You can argue that in a few minutes, but we got a pop-up windmill that goes 360 degrees. I said, Johnny, we got to do that 360 degrees. In 90-mile-an-hour wind, it comes down. It's called Wind Charger, and it's mobile. And all the solar fields are giving us contracts now because solar is good 8 to 8. Wind pops up at about 6, and it slows down again at 6 in the morning. So it's like so way cool. And we got contracts everywhere, all over the country. We got $720 million worth of contracts. We are attempting to get them financed now because it's amazing. But it just finally, after a dozen, sorry about that, we're going to have to go through this. Okay, now, this is a slide. When I get done with it, I need you to take a picture of it. Kathy Wood, as far as I'm concerned, is the smartest woman in the stock market these days. She is a push the edge of the envelope lady in innovation only. Her company is called ARC. I'd encourage you to watch all of her stuff, A-R-K, ARC Research online, watch all of her stuff. But what she says is really brilliantly accurate. First of all, steam engine was like way cool, and it got America going in the Industrial Revolution going. 1840s, we got the railways, and our friend Abe Lincoln raised $1 billion and had a 100-year bond, which I'm asking American leadership now to do a $100 trillion 100-year bond, and they're talking to me about it. And if we can make that happen, we can do everything needed to do. We can fund everything. But here's the deal: 1898, we have a depression, the first thing that shut down the world of our America, like COVID has. And we had 4 inventions. We had the airplane with the Wright brothers. We had the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell. We had the automobile with our friend Henry Ford, an internal combustion engine. And then we had electricity with Thomas Edison. And a lot of people think that was the greatest boom ever. Remember, I want you to get your cell phone out, because in a second, when I get to where we're really going, I need you to take a picture of this for yourself. I obviously got to memorize and believe what Kathy Wood is saying. So everyone said, well, you're not going to do more than computers, and you're sure as hell not going to do more than the internet. And seeing as I can't see this whole thing, DNA sequencing is really cool because it's going to change all our lives. You're going to get rid of disease and stuff like that. So it's like wonderful. And robots are starting to make stuff. In Newport Beach, a guy makes $2 million a week with robots making false teeth and 3D printing and all that stuff. So we're in this exciting thing that it's going to change stuff. And we have the biggest 3D computer here at GCU, Grand Canyon University, and a second one at ASU. Both schools have over 100,000 students. The two biggest population schools in America are here in Arizona, and I'm pretty close to both of them. The whole thing, I'm in alternative energy, and now back to our friend Elon Musk. He says he's got a battery coming out that's going to be like a chip as thin as your thumbnail, and it's going to last 1 million miles. That is going to change the world, because what I'm saying to you is you got to have energy to have water. You got to have water to have food, food to have abundance. We can, for the first time in history, thanks to technology, and I know that Ken has taught you guys all about Peter Diamandis' great stuff. I think Dr. Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil has started Singularity and wrote Abundance. Peter wrote Abundance and Bold and all those books. Peter is the living Bucky Fuller. I've met with him a bunch of times, and doing great stuff. So now you say, well, whoops, let me go back. I'll leave this up just for a second so you can take a picture, and then any of you want to take a picture of it, take a picture of it, or you can go online and look at all the Kathy Wood stuff. But we're going through this decade, once it opens up, the largest, most impactful innovation economics in history. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it is led by Americans. And I see we've got a lot of foreign nationals on here, and I'm fine with that. We got to make this whole world work. We've got to end the reason for war by having abundance. That doesn't mean we won't have some wackadoos out there, but basically we can fundamentally take care of 100% of humanity, which is probably at about 8 billion right now. Okay, I'm assuming you took the pictures. Anyone not, we can go back to it later. So I've been doing seminars all over. Crystal and I are doing a great seminar, and this guy comes in. Most times people that come to my seminars are in a suit and tie. This kid comes in wall-to-wall tattoos, and I go, oh boy, I think he arrived at the wrong seminar. I'm not in judgment, it just didn't look right. So he comes up to me and says, I'm worth over $200 million because of you. And I go, whoa, what'd you do? He said, I created Tap Out Clothing, and I'm a top MMA guy. I said, well, I'm glad you're in my room. If there's trouble, I'm glad you're on my side. He said, I can't read. I'm totally dyslexic, reading backwards and upside down, sort of like my friend Richard Branson. And he said, I drive back and forth from Orange County to LA every day, and I've listened to, this is the most listened to set of tapes ever. And now it's becoming a book, How to Think Bigger Than You Ever Thought You Could Think. And it just made that guy super successful. So I had him talk to the whole audience. It was a sort of expansive of my mind that Dan would do that. Now, I'm asking you to have a bucket list. When you figure out what you want, one of the things I hope all of you want to do is write a book, because it creates instant credibility. It makes you an expert in your field. It makes you an authority. And, I hope it's on your bucket list. If it is, go to markvictorhansen.com, and, we'll teach you how to do that. So, and we got a whole funnel and a great stuff. But what am I saying? I'm saying, figure out what you want, and you've got to have your goals, and they've got to be in writing. I'm going to ask you to write them. I'm going to ask you to keep them. I'm going to ask you to wrap them in a $100 bill. I'm going to ask you to put them on a 3x5 card. I'm going to ask you to carry it around in your wallet, purse, or pocket. And, mine say, I am so happy I'm selling 1 million books in a year and a half, and it's signed by Crystal and I and our publisher. And you look at it 4 times a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, but most importantly, right before you go to sleep, because the subconscious never sleeps. So the subconscious, the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, subconscious, superconscious, I don't care what you call it, is out there working, and it'll bring it back. Like back when I started in 1974 doing seminars, I needed $400 earnings a day. So I was doing what's called thought command. I said 400, 400, 400, 400. Again, I woke up at about 2:59 in the morning, a little digital clock next to bed read out. And I always have paper and pen next to the bed, like I ask you to. And it said Bill Widener State Mutual. I'd never heard of State Mutual. The next day I'm out cold calling to sell my seminars after I'd done 2 in the morning. It's lunchtime. Nobody is at the front desk. It said Bill Widener State Mutual. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I never heard of this guy. Walked to the desk. He said he gave me $400 in 5 minutes time. He thought I might never come back, but he said it was the most enthusiasm he'd ever felt in his whole life emanating out of me, because I learned that I wanted to make 100 grand a year. That's $400 a day, 250 work days. Then I met the richest #1 salesman, Ben Feldman. And Ben said, "You got kids?" I said, "Yeah." "You love them?" "Yeah." He said, "If your daughter or one of your kids needs to earn 4,000 tomorrow, would you be able to do it?" I said, "Yeah, I'd figure out how to do it." He said, "Then just do that and do it 250 times a day. And that's $1 million a year." And he immediately got me from earning 100,000 to $1 million a year by the time I was 30. So whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, author will accelerate you getting there. First of all, I think writing is fun. And one of the things you'll get if you go to our website in 4 days, we'll finally have it up. I go from blank page to bestseller. Obviously, I've made a fortune doing it. I've had fame, opportunity galore, promotion, board of directors, credibility, rewards, 10 honorary doctorates, stuff that I can't believe. Travel, I've been to 80 countries, talked to 7 million people, literally get friends everywhere. And it's the fulfillment of my destiny. I'm not saying it's your destiny, but I'm saying I believe for everybody that would be a lifelong learner and metal, you've got the metal, the spiritual stuff inside that you need to take and move forward on a book. I want to tell you one more story and then we'll open it up to questions. Jim Stovall is 19 years old and he wants to be a superstar football player. He gets recruited by the NFL and he goes, takes his test. It's a life fulfillment for him. And the doctor and the coach comes back shaking her head and say, "Kid, we're sorry to tell you this, but in 6 months, you're going to be absolutely permanently forever blind." Crushes this giant. He's now self-incarcerated in a 9x12 room. He's got a radio, a telephone, or a television, and he's mumbling negativity. And his parents say, "Look, Jim, you go down to the blind meeting. Maybe they can help you." He gets down to the blind meeting, sits next to a woman who's a blind court stenographer. And he said, "You know, in the old days, I used to love to watch TV and see somebody throw a right hook. Somebody ought to do something about that. This is a pivotal question to reorienting, reinventing, re-innovating your career." She says, "Wait a second, Jim, you and I are somebody. Why can't we do something?" For those of you that don't know it, he created with Kathy narrative television and film. They have 14 million people, the third biggest streaming service in the world at $10 a month each. And, you know, unless you're blind, you wouldn't know it. But then all of a sudden, Charlie Tremendous Jones, when I'm selling 15 million books a year and we're so busy, I could hardly have time to sleep. And Charlie calls up and said, "Look, I'm your best friend or one of them. And you're going to do me a favor." I said, "Oh, come on, Charlie, what do you want?" He said, "This guy, Jim Stovall, is blind and he's written a book called The Ultimate Gift. I need you to write the foreword and the endorsement." I go, "Man." He said, "You're going to love this book. It's best. It's going to, other than yours, it's going to be one of the best you ever read." I read it. I was so touched. I did it. And I said, "This book is so clear, The Ultimate Gift, it has got to be a movie." Well, he made $100 million in that movie. So I interview him for our book, Ask. This guy's pure wisdom. You need to read his chapter in here. But he says, "If I live to be 100, I'll never stop thanking you every day in my prayers, Mark, because I now write books that I can't read. And I make movies that I can't watch." And I'm going to be in his next movie, assuming some stuff happens. So, and he also just happened to become our last Olympic weightlifting champion. He's such a stud. And he is an absolute polymath. And when he asked John Wooden, "If I have a problem, what do you do?" He said, "Just tell me what you're amazing at and then just go do that." Same thing I'm saying. What is your destiny? And go do that. Right. And he helps, like I told you, the blind. And The Ultimate Gift made $100 million for him as a major movie. Just amazing. Now, back to the book before I open the question. Look, there's a book fortune in each and every one of you. I really believe it. Here's me holding a tray of our books. The world needs it. You're the only one that can write your book. And there are people that are going to read your stuff that'll never read mine. Although if you recommend mine, I'm very thankful for you to do that. But I would that you all write your own book. With that, I will open it up to questions. I will shut this down.
All right.
Share.
Mark, that was fabulous. Thank you so much for putting so much time into that. So, hey guys, let's start real quick. I want to go to Ron. Hey, Ron Livy, I'm going to open it up to you. Ron, sorry about that. Unmute yourself, Ron. Go for it and ask Mark your question.
I just posted in there earlier. It was just curiosity. When you showed the slide with all of the chicken soup books, there was one that jumped out at me because it kind of wasn't like the others, and it was the one on NASCAR. So I'm just curious, was it a personal passion of yours, or how did that come to be?
The answer is our son is exceedingly big in it. So the answer is yes. And do you make the miniature cars, or what do you do with NASCAR?
I like NASCAR and I follow it a bit, but that's all. I'm just hobbyist.
Well, let me just do an aside that only because we've been doing these podcasts, sometimes 4 or 5 a day, and we just did Adam Carolla. And Adam Carolla has a story I would have put in that book now that I know it. But Adam made the documentary on Paul Newman, the Newman's Own and all that stuff, and Newman's TV, Paul Newman. And Paul Newman said, look, Adam, you got to do me a favor. And Adam said, what do you want, Paul? Anything you want. He said, look, I sponsored a black guy to do Budweiser, who's my sponsor after Coors. And he goes by half the name, Uppity, and he's the first black man to ever win. And I want you to do a documentary on him. Now, Adam said, look, that just happened. He said, I want you to watch it on Netflix. He said, because Ford versus Ferrari came out. And he said, when that came out, they wanted Paul Newman's documentary I made, and then they wanted Uppity. And he said, now I've got 10 that are being done. Matter of fact, we're in discussions with something about doing that. So, and not about Chicken Soup, but about somebody else that just needs to be done. And Carolla is just, he's a polymath. And I think all of us are polymaths. And what happens is, because Ken asked that as the first question, I think we get screwed over. We're told in university, you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a medical doctor, and don't think anything else. Well, hell, you should think everything else. There's no limit. I don't know if I over answered your question, but yes,
no,
NASCAR soul.
It's all good. And Ken, if it's okay, I would like to ask a writing question here.
Please.
I started writing a book actually, and I put pause on it. So a couple of questions is, I've never written a book. I think it's time in my life that I should. And I'm doing a mental shift thanks to Metal and all the exposure we've got here. I kind of stopped on the one book because I don't want that particular title and that particular book to brand me, right? And I think that first book has a lot to do with branding. So I'm not quite sure what that book is. But with that said, it sounds like you have a program available on your website in a few days. Can you give me a snapshot of how that program gets us to pick our subject or help narrow down our subject and the process of writing through that program?
You did 3 or 4 questions all at once. I'm going to do them as best I can. If I miss anything, redirect, please. First of all, I don't think you should ever write one book at a time. Okay. And by the way, I teach that because I obviously did the book. I championed the book, Chicken Soup for the Writer Soul. And I interviewed Steve Allen, who is totally dyslexic, reads backwards and upside down. And he created The Tonight Show, wrote 7,000 songs, like I'm into something big, wrote 40 major books. And I did the last presentation at Barnes & Noble in LA with him, or somewhere in Hollywood. I don't remember. Westwood it was. And what he said is that because he can't read, he had 28 tape recorders, and he said, I do 28 topics at once. And if I ever hit writer's block, I go back and do another one. And then you'll figure out, and then the question, like Jack and I said, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, and God told us at 2:58, Jack called up and said, Chicken Soup. I said, for the soul. We knew we had it, even though we got rejected. But the point here is, ask yourself, what is the book that I'm to brand with? What is the book I'm to brand with? God, what is a book, or whatever name you use for God, I don't care, infinite intelligence. What is the brand that I want? Because there's something that you're supposed to brand with. I can't tell you, but your inner knower knows. Your higher self knows. Do you believe that?
I do.
Well, can I ask what business you're in? Because I don't know you.
I'm in the blockchain business, so I loved your graph.
Oh, cool. Well, by the way, blockchain, as you saw, is one of the deals.
That's why I love seeing it. We have one of the first publicly traded companies, albeit very small right now, but publicly traded companies in the space. So I feel I'm perched for an adventure at a later stage of life that I'm very excited about.
Well, by the way, you can see I believe, and she believes that it's one of the big futures.
Yeah.
Because we're having trouble with money in the world right now at every level. And it has multiplicity uses. I mean, everybody else might not be interested in the conversation you and I will privately have.
No, we're all interested in it, Mark. Just FYI, we're a big blockchain. We all watch William Quigley's show on Thursday, which you did too.
Yeah.
So a couple of things then, Mark, when you're suggesting specifically, because he's in the blockchain, should he focus on a book around blockchain, or should he look at something that's more esoteric that brings people to where his thoughts are being Ron's thoughts?
Remember, I said write multiple books at the same time, and to get him out of his stopness, I forgot to say, write 22 minutes a day to get going. And then pretty soon your soul gets excited and you wake up at 4 a.m. and go, son of a bitch, I can't sleep. I got to go write this. And we all know that. All of us that have a business know you have the business, and then sometimes the business owns you until you sell the business.
I like that a
Excellent
lot.
business. Does that make sense?
Ron, thank you so much, buddy.
Yep, thanks.
I don't know who Galaxy 7 or S7 is. Who is that?
It's me, Ken. Sorry, that's my phone. Michael Collender.
Oh, it's Mike. Mike, by the way, Mark, you would love Mike. Mike has just got done writing a book on, Mike, let's say.
It's called A Rhetoric of Love. It's the second volume in the series.
Ah, what a nice title.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the question. Go ahead.
The second chapter of my thing is how to have a best-selling title. The only thing I'd say about rhetoric, and I'm not, this is not to besmirch you, it's to besmirch, remember, only half of Americans have an IQ under 100. Rhetoric is a $10 word. I would ask you to, on your next volume, to find a smoother, softer word. Obviously, I know what that means.
Sure, that's what my publisher said, so I'm sort of stuck with it. But the question I had for you is I've written this book, which is kind of a textbook. It's designed for students who are basically taking a year-long course, but it's all so practical, so skill-focused, and given our current political climate and how we've really lost the ability to persuade with love, it seems like a really timely book and an important topic. What would you recommend for me to try to market this book to a wider audience who could make use of these skills? Is there a strategy that you would use if you were me?
I'm going to tell you what it is exactly. I believe in bypass marketing, and I sell more books than in places people don't expect. Like we're on the side of 50 million Diet Coke cases for 6 months with my book and Nora Roberts' book, hers Hidden Riches, mine Chicken Soup with the Romantic Soul, which fits your zone. Your zone is, look, there are like, I don't know how many dating services there are, but because you're in LA, are you in LA?
I'm in Montana, but my publisher is back east.
Okay, well, Barry Diller's in LA and he claims the biggest dating service. I don't know dating because I'm happily married and I'm going to stay there. But the fact is, partner up with one of the big dating services. And there's, by the way, there's schisms of that. There's a Christian dating service, there's a Jewish dating service, there's schisms. So, and do your book and everyone. But then the other thing, because you said it's a big book and a textbook, I would break it, sell it that way. But then, I used to get blasphemed for selling 15 million books a year at dollar stores, Dollar General, Dollar Tire, all that crap. And people would say, why would you do that? You're polluting and whoring our business. I said, I could pay 15 cents a book. I sell 15 million books a year. You beat me, right? And the point is, I said, the people that go to a dollar store will never darken the door of a Barnes and Noble or a Books A Million or, and so what I'm saying is you've got something that's great. And I think then back to Ken's question about your thing is the path in. Let's talk about the path in. Today, we got tires on one of my wife's cars and at Discount Tire, and they're so brilliant because they fill your car with air and then say, whoa, Bubba, you need new tires. And so we got $1,400 worth of new Beamer tires. The point I'm making is there's got to be some niche way into this market. And if you and I talk long enough, I could tell you where it is. I don't know where it is right this second, but I guarantee right now, so many people are claustrophobic, having been locked down, and they don't know how to get to that other person. And they desperately want to. And I'll go one step further. When I got out of a very tragic divorce way long ago, I wrote down 267 things I needed in my ideal wife. We had to be monogamous, same value. She had to have her own money, her own business, because somebody can't marry me for my wallet. That's not acceptable. And, she was, Crystal's 267 out of 267. I say never cross out, right down V, victory. I never showed her that until after we got married, but it's something like that may trigger your thing to get it to sell. But I really think you ought to do it with the marriage services. I call that bypass marketing. You can call it anything you want, but right, it's not, because the bookstores aren't going to open for a while. And if you don't know it, let me just tell you, they're not paying their bills because they're in malls. The malls kept running the tech on Barnes and Noble, and Barnes and Noble, I love Barnes & Noble. They've been really good to me, and they've been bought by a British company. I can take you through the dirt of it, but the problem is they don't pay the publisher, so the publisher can't give them the books, which means the author can't do that. So you got to sell Amazon is pretty much it.
Okay.
Great suggestion. Thank you so much,
Hey,
Mark.
thank you.
Michael, I hope that was good.
It was great. Thank you.
Let's go over to Ed. Ed, you are next with Mark Victor Hansen. Go for it, Ed.
Hi, Mark. I was just wondering, where do you see the whole self-publishing world in relation to traditional publishers and what you're advocating for people to explore when they're thinking about writing a book?
Okay, are you a publisher?
No, I'm just somebody curious. I have a few ideas for a book, but I have a lot of friends that have done the self-publishing route, and I'm just trying to understand where that fits.
Okay, so historically, I would have told you it's nice to go to a major publisher, and I'm with 7 publishers right now because I'm prolific, right? I mean, we got books. All my tapes are now being made into books with different publishers, like Live Your Dream, How to Think Bigger Than I Ever Thought You Could Think. Like I just showed you the picture of the old album, and it's really amazing to write that stuff up to date. The self-publishing thing is probably the way to go. If, by the way, here's the deal. You got to have an excellent book and you're 10% done. That's what I teach. 90% of success is in marketing and sales and self-promotion, which I teach on the seminar, which is a 12 module seminar at markvictorhansen.com. And we teach how to do all that marketing. But if you can market, which I'm going to assume that you're in business and you're with metal, so you probably know how to market. If you figure out how to market, and then you figure out how, like the guy I was talking to just now, how to bypass the market. Like when we were out of blood in America, Liddy Dole came to me and said, the Red Cross doesn't have blood, and you always have these best ideas, Mark. Have you got an idea? And I said, yeah. Let's go to the medical doctors. Well, they won't give it. She said, I tried that. I said, well, I'll go to the chiropractors. I got 3 honorary doctorates in chiropractic, and they see 25 million patients. And we brought a little blood mobile out. I said, all the doctors called 800, give life. And then we gave them what we called a sampler, 3 stories in chicken soup. And the next 58 weeks, we were #1 because the people gave blood, got a free adjustment, and got a little sampler of our book. And it just went crazy. Now, that was like 20 years ago, and I was got awards with William Shatner and Lisa Gibbons in Washington, D.C. at their headquarters. We're doing that now again with the chiropractors, even a bigger way, because we're under the problem of getting, people like me with antibodies. So we're going to bypass market, and we're going to sell the crap out of this book, it looks like. And the head of the association has been on the phone to me, both of them, every day. So what I'm saying is just go deep in your consciousness. Remember, I said, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. And can I ask what your ethnic heritage is?
I keep muting. Half Guatemalan and the other half is Puerto Rican mix.
Wow. You heard me say I opened up all the pyramids of Guatemala, like San Bartolo.
Yeah, I heard that. Sounds pretty interesting. Yeah.
but what happened is the guy flying over it from Harvard at 100,000 feet changed the lenses accidentally and said, son of a bitch, there were 10 million people here 1,000 years ago. I mean, your peers are really dang smart. So, anyhow, and they built pyramids on top of pyramids. It's amazing. It's not the right story for today, but the point is that here's what I think. Whatever you write should be for the whole Latino culture, which is 50 million in America. But and by the way, if I've got the wrong number, it's me. It's not the demographics. I'm good at demographics, but we have 500 million Latinos all the way down to the bottom, not counting Brazil, right? Is that the right number? Or 50?
I don't
50
know.
million, sorry, 50 million.
Yeah.
So you got a heck of a market. And what I'm suggesting is going forward, you're going to see the Americas, North and South America. And I know it stops at Panama, and I got to open up the canals. One of the famous things they let me do as a world's best-selling author. And that was great fun. That's why I'm saying all of you got to write, so you get to do some of these super cool things that you say, well, I never get to do that crap. Well, go write a book and become famous. Anyhow, the point is, my position is that leadership in America is going to open up the rest of Americas. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because they're open to spirituality. That was not meant to be political, Ken.
No, that's okay. Ed, is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, thanks.
Mark,
I appreciate it.
I want to ask a question, and I want to make sure we don't go in the politics side, but I want to make sure that, since I know that you've done your due diligence and your research, and this is really important, and not being political, I'm a bit lost on something.
What?
Why is this Russia conversation happening when China really is the one that really is the giant?
China is the giant, and the reason they're trying to sidetrack us to China, to Russia, is because China is owned deeply by Silicon Valley, right? The biggest investor in Google, the biggest investor in Nike. Okay, so here's what happened. The NBA, remember, I'm close friends with Peter Guber, who's a member. NBA is 8 billion, Nike is 40 billion, and China owns 40 billion. And they come into LeBron James and say, you're going to become a billionaire because we're only going to sell your shoes in China. And so they tell him what he's got to say. So he says it. That's why we got the athletes. But that's exactly the same thing that's happening with Facebook, what's happening with Google. And it's really in problematic with Amazon, because suddenly Amazon Cloud is what runs our government at the business. I'm just talking about the business, not the politics. And suddenly, how do you disentangle all that? And we are in a deep doo-doo here, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, because we need those organizations. We need them, but we need them to be, clean, and we need them to be safe for America. Because look, we all read
independent. We need them to be independent.
Yeah, we know. We all read Orwell. We all read Animal Farm. All of us are equal. Some of us are more equal. And we can't have that stuff. I don't like that people can, know everything I say in every conversation on my cell phone. That's not okay with me.
So, but again, that the Russia conversation is more of the wag the dog type thing. Throw it out there, make people more focused on that.
It's called distraction. It's like when your little kid was crying, you say, "Oh, we're going to Disneyland." They stop crying. They start smiling.
Yeah, I'm meeting graduates that are coming out of MBA programs out of Beijing, and it's as if they're PhD times PhD compared to our people coming out of MBAs. It's another level. Jack Ma teaches a class. It literally is the ninjas of business are teaching the MBA classes in Beijing.
Yeah, and Jack Ma is one of my students. He came to 7 of my talks. We'd stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, and not only does he have my talk, but I can name the other guys. And Horatio, I'm a Horatio, a Jury Award winner that all taught Jack. So Jack is exceedingly well trained, and his best friend is my promoter in the old days in China, Dr. David Chu. So they got, isn't it 30 times or 300 times as many engineers training in STEM programs?
There is more engineers graduating every year than all the attorneys that have graduated from American universities. So 1 year, more engineers graduating than all attorneys in America every year.
Yeah.
So hey, let's do this. Last question.
They are told what to do.
Yeah. Last question. Harry, I want you to ask the question because I love that question. Why don't you ask it?
Okay, first I gotta say, Mark, I'm from Phoenix, maybe going back, gonna be in Sedona. I don't know if you've been up to Sedona yet, but you need to check it out. It's gorgeous. During those 144 rejections you were getting, were you making revisions and editing along the way, or taking advice from these guys, or did you just stick to your guns and not change anything?
Wow, I've never been asked that question in all these podcasts and all the interviews. That's a lovely question. And first of all, we love Sedona. Okay. And we go there in Flagstaff a lot when we were trying to cool off more to Flagstaff because it's so hot here this summer. And answer the question, we never stopped writing, and Jack is anal retentive, and he is, he's the inside guy, I'm the outside guy. But we believe we teach 38 principles that I teach in my course, one of which is Feedback's a Breakfast with Champion, which he learned when he was at Harvard from Dr. Ken Blanchard, who wrote with Spencer Johnson, Who Moved My Cheese, and 1 Minute Manager. I wrote 1 Minute Millionaire, and Kenny is a close friend. So what we did is, like when we did Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, our publisher said, "You guys are blown at this time. I got teenagers who buy CDs, concert tickets, and clothes. I give them $50. They go to the mall. I come back, say, what happened to the $50? Said the mall ate it." So we did the book, this book, which got a weird looking cover, but luckily at the time, Time Magazine was trying to buy us ahead of time. As Larry Kirschbaum, who I adore. He's just a mensch. And Larry said, "Look, my daughter is head of Nickelodeon." And so we had 12,000 kids read 250 stories that Jack and I thought were perfect. Now, what we did is we took There's never a name. It wasn't Mark and Jack's story. It wasn't Art Linkletter. It wasn't Art Buchwald. So no one knew who the story was. The story had to stand on its own merit. Now, the publisher said this wouldn't sell. In the first year, we sold 19 million copies. So you want to test it with, I say, grow rich in a niche. I wrote a book like that with Jay Abraham. And what happens is you need to pick a niche that is so easy, and teenagers have nothing to talk about. So what happened is I was talking to all the universities, and I talked at Ball State University, and 3 girls said, we wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for your book because we were lonely for mommy and daddy. And then the president said, after I talked to these 20,000 kids that were hitting a ball around, we had a great time. He said, only 1 in 10 that matriculate nowadays graduate. And I said, that sucks. So I did chicken soup for the college soul to make sure that if you get in, you get out, and you get out in 4 years. I was on the 10-year plan, but I was getting a doctorate. So it was a little different than somebody else, right? I was addicted to Bucky Fuller. I couldn't believe how stupid I was. But remember, I came out of parents, we didn't have 1 book in my house growing up. My parents weren't stupid. They were smart. They just didn't have English as a language. But in answer to your question, so we test everything, and then we try to make sure the audience that's going to buy it, it hammers.
That's awesome. Well, Mark, you did a damn good job like normal. That's all I expect out of you.
Thank
Guys,
you, everybody.
Everybody unmute your mic and let's give it up for Mark Victor Hansen and go off and get the book Ask.
Thank you, Mark. That was fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
That was great.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We love you,
Thanks,
Mark.
Mark.
Bye, everyone.
Love you
Bye,
guys.
everyone. Bye.